Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special hangout on what the Dutch call pakjesavond. And I've got with me someone from Belgium. Who,
Hello.
yes, Amelia Jane.
Hi.
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 And they will be celebrating their pakjesavond tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So
That
I
is
thought
true.
we do it on my channel. She can post it on her channel tomorrow. So we'll serve both markets between brackets. Yay, capitalism! Uh,
Woo!
woo! So what are we going to talk about? This is something that is somewhat notorious. I wouldn't say famous, somewhat notorious. There is a tradition in the lowlands called Zwarte Piet or Black Piet, and it's let's yeah, it's a blackface tradition.
Yeah,
I
basically.
want yeah, I wanted to call it at first a perceived as a blackface tradition, but it is a blackface tradition.
Yeah.
Um, who is or what is Black Pete? Black Pete is Saint Nicholas's servant, and he's the one that goes down the chimney and brings people candy when you put your shoe in front of the fireplace, or if you've been bad, he spanks you and puts you. He puts you in this bag and takes you to Spain. So that's basically it. And usually, characteristically, the Black Pete is rather dim-witted and always a bit afraid for Saint Nicholas if they make mistakes, etc. And Saint Nicholas is yeah, like the leader, and he usually solves everything. Let's if did I summarize that correctly?
Well, I think that's interesting that you put it that way because I think that there's definitely a history of Black Pete being at one point a bumbling buffoon, and the reason things going wrong. But I wonder, is that like still the perception in the Netherlands? Because in Belgium it has really changed.
It is. I mean, I haven't been really been watching the last couple of years,
Yeah.
but it has become less of a buffoon. But that's
Right.
also interesting because there is an enormous struggle in the Netherlands because they don't
Mhm.
want Black Pete to change. While during my lifetime, Black Pete has changed tremendously.
Yeah, true. The thing is, I read an interesting article or like op-ed by this guy. Do you know about Dag Sinterklaas, the TV show?
I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, because that was a Belgian production and it ran for like 20 something years. And in that show, like it's pretty much about Sinterklaas's life when he's back in Spain and living with Black Pete, basically.
Yes.
And the thing is that in this series, like Sinterklaas is portrayed as like an old, confused, kind of forgetful dude, and Black Pete really functions as not really his servant, but more of a friend who sort of fixes all the shit that Sinterklaas fucks up because he's like old and forgetful. So we've had 20 years of portrayal of Black Pete in this country through television as this kind of witty, on top of things, leader sort of guy who just fixes things and who's actually a pretty nice person and in a very equal relationship with Sinterklaas. So maybe that sort of also contributes to the difference in our perception and the perception in the Netherlands of the whole Black Pete story.
Yeah. I must say, and this is to be fair, I haven't watched it for quite some time, as
Mm.
I'm also not the target audience. Um, but yeah, it's also until very recently, there was always a problem which the beats caused, and Saint Nicholas had to solve that, or it solved itself
Yeah,
after Sinterklaas found out about it. Or, for instance, someone loses a map so that they
right.
can't go back, or someone loses all the presents so they don't tell Saint Nicholas. But beyond that tradition,
Yeah.
um, do you think? Because you're saying that the Black Pete in Belgium is more benevolent.
I have the
Um,
impression, yeah.
yeah, but is it still racist? Do you
Oh
think?
yeah, for sure. I mean, not. The thing is, I don't think many people perceive it as racially insensitive. That not many people attach this sort of idea of stereotypes about black people, etc., to this thing, but that doesn't make it not racist.
Yes. So, but because if you look at the history
Yeah.
of Black Pete, and this again, like I said, most people say this is Dutch heritage, or this is yeah. Well, Dutch is in the language as well because it's also in Flanders.
Yeah.
It is widely celebrated, but Walloon, you're not so sure. Is that correct?
No, I'm not so sure about the French part and to which extent they really celebrate Black Pete. I have no idea if there is even a significant discussion about Black Pete in the French speaking community in Belgium. So, like, I think I have the impression that Flemish people are much more into it. In any case,
Okay. Um, but they say that it's Dutch tradition. It's as in the language. It's hard. It's lowland tradition. But the first time Black Pete is mentioned in any of the text is like the mid 19th century.
yeah, 1850. I think the
1850.
dude who wrote the story was called Schenkel or something.
Yeah, and a teacher from Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And before that, Saint Nicholas was alone in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
We have a tradition in Bavaria and Austria with Krampus as his servant. There is a Swiss legend, and that's it's Smootsie, I believe. Neither of which are very flattering, I must say, considering Krampus is basically a demon.
Yeah, true. True.
And Schmoot.
Oh, I don't know if anyone can still hear me, but the stream totally cut out. Not my fault. Are we back?
I think you lost me there. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Something about. Is it my connection or is it your connection?
It's my connection.
Oh, okay.
And strange enough, this is the first time I've ever had this issue. But yeah, weird. But we'll see if we can manage.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get through anyway.
But I was wondering because the Bavarian, going back to Krampus, the Bavarian slash Austrian tradition. What I've read is that a Flemish equivalent of the devil was Pietje Pek. That's a nickname for the devil.
Right. The thing is, like, being Flemish, I have never heard of this.
Okay. Well, it's a 19th century name. So this is what I read. But either way, what we ended up with was what you see is a change from actually that devil character to someone who looks Moorish.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think that's very flattering.
No. The thing is, I've read some things about throughout the history of the Sinterklaas legend that at many times he was said to be alone, but there were also versions of the story where he was accompanied by like a boogeyman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something like that. But the thing that basically, because the guy who actually wrote Black Pete into the story in 1850 was notoriously anti-slavery. Still, so the story kind of goes that it's the Black Pete character isn't really about a slave as much as it is indeed a Moorish character.
Yeah.
as in the whole kidnapping children when they've been bad actually sort of refers to the Moorish slave trade of white people that went on until somewhere in the 1800s, apparently, which is still not a very good look. The thing is also that before the introduction of Black Pete, Sinterklaas didn't used to be this kind of sympathetic, nice old man. He was depicted as kind of a grumpy, someone to be afraid of, who would punish you. There were times where even Sinterklaas himself was depicted as black and wearing chains and being like really creepy. And what happened when Schenkel wrote Black Pete into the story is that actually a lot of the negative characteristics of Sinterklaas were projected onto his servant. Suddenly Black Pete was the one who was going to kidnap you if you were bad and was going to beat your ass, and the one you had to be afraid of. And whatever intention you write that with, it's not a good association to just suddenly have a black Moorish character associated with white slave trade, who then sort of takes on all the negative aspects that used to be attributed to Sinterklaas. Like whichever way you turn that.
No, that's plus it's like it kind of reflects the mindset of the time, because even people who were against slavery still had the idea of white man's burden. As in, the white man needs to solve everything until the black people are able to handle their own business. That's basically it. And the Saint Nicholas revised version from the mid 19th century like echoes that philosophy.
Yeah, that's very true. I've also heard stories that it's actually based on Wodan. Who,
Raven.
With the ravens. So Wodan, as in the tradition, people would leave sacrifices. Actually, that used to be stuff like carrots, and they would leave it in socks and shoes and everything. And then Wodan would come and give the people fruit, like apples. And he was said to have black ravens with him who would go listen in on people's conversations and report intelligence to him. So lots of people who feel a bit iffy about associating Black Pete with colonialism and like racist kind of stuff fall back onto this kind of, but it's because Wodan and his ravens were black, so Black Pete was black. And I think it's kind of a stretch, to be honest.
I've never met a raven with curly hair and earrings. So
same. The idea these people have is that the function of Black Pete is to gather intelligence and report that back to Sinterklaas, so that he's actually pretty smart and important. Like that's the kind of portrayal they want to make of it. But the thing is, Black Pete has never been one single stagnant character. There's been a lot of evolution over time, and we've discussed the whole Moorish bit, but in the early to mid 1900s, suddenly Black Pete became a very stereotypical caricature of this bumbling, clownish buffoon of a black person, the way they were also often portrayed in old cartoons and comic books, which was literally designed to make fun of black people as a demographic.
A very famous Belgian example is Tintin in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where Tintin goes and he tries to teach people just how basically to do 1 + 1 is 2. And later versions have that revised, I must say. But there are many stories, and this is so complicated because now it's already, we went from a Dutch tradition, that's what they say, to like this pan-European idea of Saint Nicholas. So there's this myth that this is nationality, that this is a national treasure. While Saint Nicholas has been celebrated throughout Europe. If you look at France, for instance, you said that they had a boogeyman in the 19th century onwards. The boogeyman in France is a murderer of children.
Oh, great!
Who's next to it? Because one of the reasons why Saint Nicholas is a saint is because he brought children back to life after a butcher murdered and chopped up some kids.
Yeah,
And
they're actually not sure about that story.
yeah, they're not so, but it's a myth. That's the
Yeah.
myth. And in parts of France where it is celebrated, that butcher is on Santa Claus's side
Wow.
as a sort of penance. Yeah. This is,
Holy shit.
I read that in a newspaper today. I didn't know that, and I was like, okay, this is going into the this is going
That's
into this
all.
hangout.
I actually read a thing about Krampus, as in the demon that accompanies
Yeah.
the Saint Nick figure in the Alp regions. That Krampus didn't used to kidnap children, and that is actually taken from the Dutch Black Pete version of things, and that was then later added on to Krampus.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Though that's
Yeah.
wow. That's interesting. But yeah. So the strange thing is when this, because this has been controversial abroad for a very long time. If we've now kind of did this short pan-European idea of what is Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas's companion in.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched the American variety with elf slave labor, but
Capitalism.
capitalism, yay! But I myself, if I may speak for myself, have very warm memories of Black Pete.
Yeah, same.
And
Me too.
it's so strange because now it's kind of bittersweet. So I get why people are so angry. I get why people are sad.
Yeah.
Because I was sad at the beginning. When this was early 2010s, when this started to pan out, and there was this huge discussions on Facebook, I decided to write a text. But I decided to do one on Word because I don't want to run into a grammar Nazi. So I went to Microsoft Word. I was typing this like almost an essay on why I love Black Pete and why I wanted Black Pete to stay. I didn't see it at all.
Yeah.
And then and it came back to the news article where it said people are against Black Pete. And I said, oh, let's see what other people, what for kind of valuable contributions they made.
Yeah.
And it was full of racist nonsense. It was full of comparing the people who complained to apes, using the N-word. And then I was like, okay, I deleted the essay. And I'm like, I don't want to belong to those people. It's terrible.
Yeah. The thing is, I have good memories about Sinterklaas in general. Like, it was always fun. I would get up in the morning and there'd be like this trail of chocolate and clementines just down the stairs to, where all the toys were and everything. So that was really fun. I don't think I was ever afraid of Black Pete. I think I actually quite liked him, but I was actually aware of the fact that, oh, this is a Black person. Like that was that in my mind. It was never like a weird that there were never any negative associations with that. But in my head it was really like, oh yeah, okay, that's not a white dude, that's the Black dude. It's not just the chimney, it's obviously Black dude.
Yeah.
And I didn't really feel bummed out when all the criticism of Black Pete, and because not to be like pedantic, but like criticism of Black Pete has been happening since like 1930 or something, on and off. But yeah, it's been really big these last few years, and I wasn't really bothered. It didn't really taint my memory of Black Pete at all. Like for me, it was just kind of like, oh right, there's actually a demographic that is being portrayed in Black Pete. Let's hear what these people have to say because it's probably more relevant than how I feel. And I was instantly like, yeah, I would not have cared for like a single second if Black Pete wasn't black but had like suit stripes on his face, or if he was like, I don't know, blue or just white for all that matter. Like it wouldn't have taken away from the function of Black Pete.
Yeah.
The only reason that Black Pete is Black Pete and should stay Black Pete is because adults remember it that way. Kids don't care.
If I may give some extra information for those not in the lowlands, there are several alternatives to Black Pete, and one of them is make them different colors. So make them blue peach, make them yellow peach, etc. And the other one is to stay within the cover story. The cover story is that Black Pete is black because he goes through the chimney. And then I immediately ask, okay, where do the red lips, earrings, and hair come from?
Yeah.
And they don't have an answer. Plus, his clothes are always immaculate. So no one can explain that to me. But I said, make them like chimney sweeps. They'll little bit suit. It's charming. It's fun. So that's the alternative. And personally, I thought that would be a great way of doing it. And I know that there have been people have been against Black Pete since, like you said, early 20th century. But until now, until very recently, they weren't being heard.
True.
And that's the difference. This is a great case in seeing what happens if suddenly a certain group gets a megaphone. What happens if a certain group suddenly gets a place in society where it matters? You see that in the Me Too movement.
Yep.
Same people are saying like, oh, why now? Well, because people weren't listening before.
Mm-hmm.
People have been saying this for a very long time. There's an example in the Dutch Sesame Street. Is there a Belgian Sesame Street, a Flemish Sesame Street, or is it the same one?
No, it's the same one. There isn't a separate version.
Okay, so you are familiar with Gerda Havertong?
Well, the thing is, like, I never really watched Sesame Street, though.
Oh, it's terrible.
There's probably Flemish kids that have, but like, no, we watched Samson and Gert, basically.
I watched that too because I did my homework
every Sunday.
For shame. But okay, there is a Suriname aunt in the Dutch Sesame Street. Her name is Gerda, and there is an episode in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
She's been with Sesame Street since the beginning, so she's been in it for more than 40 years. She was one of the first black people I knew, basically.
Cool.
And she said in 1987, one of the characters in the Dutch Sesame Street is called Tommy. And said, oh, don't you look forward to Sinterklaas? She says, no, not really. Because everyone's calling me Black Pete, she said. And this is more than 30 years ago. And a national television show. And no one noticed because no one heard her, I think. But they wrote it in. It's there. It's there as proof that this has been a problem since you can remember.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, for me, I remember vividly when I found out that Sinterklaas was not real. I was like 7 or 8. And I suddenly thought, but now if I'm bigger, if I'm grown up, I can be Black Pete and I can help the fake St. Nicholas. So I can make other kids happy. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a personal sadness, but it was very understandable, especially if you see the barrage of things that have been going on in the Netherlands. If you look before this hangout started, we talked about the difference in the way the Black Pete changes have affected both our countries. Let me give a short recap of what happened in the Netherlands. The person, there was a famous Dutch, she was actually an MTV VJ, or the Dutch MTV VJ's Team F. And she said she's against Black Pete. And since then she had death threats. Like 40 people were convicted of threatening to kill her. The videos were made of lynching her, etc.
Wow.
Yeah, it's terrible.
That is genuinely horrible.
That's absolutely despicable. Geert Wilders, I would have expected from him. He said he's the man of free speech.
We know who Geert Wilders is.
No, but his big thing is free speech. Free speech, because if people are, he's all in favor of free speech. Apparently, unless she's doing it, because when she got death threats and she didn't get into the Dutch Parliament, he said, "Oh well, she should have just kept her mouth shut." Basically, but that's red meat for his base.
Yeah, of course. Of course it is.
When Saint Nicholas came to Eindhoven, that's a town in the Netherlands. There was no football, so all the football hooligans start doing the Hitler salute.
Oh, for God's sake. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I think I saw like bits and pieces
yeah.
of shit like that
And
happening.
they said things like there was a woman there, and they call her the whore of the blacks because she was anti-Black Pete, and they said the N word, etc., etc. And this is the level. It's almost like Confederate statues in the United
Yeah.
States. That's what Black Pete has become in the Netherlands.
Yeah. And an argument that I've been hearing out of the Netherlands, like from just not even really far right wing or like borderline fascist people, but a thing that I've been hearing from people like in the street, is that now suddenly you have like these black people coming here and they have a problem with our culture and they should just go back to their own country. And it just
Yeah.
really shows how oblivious people are to the fact that there have been black people in Belgium and the Netherlands for generations. These people, like a lot of them were born and raised here. Like they have no other country to go back to. The Netherlands is their country.
Well,
And
yeah.
there's like this misconception that,
Hmm.
misconception, this disbelief that people of another skin color can actually be relevant, valid members of your society, that they
Yes.
belong in your society, that they're part of it, that they are part of your culture, and that
Hmm.
what you call, oh, Dutch culture doesn't represent the people who have been in your country for like over a century. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree. And they also said to Silvana, that's her
Yeah.
name, Silvana Simons.
Mm.
They said when she spoke out, "Why don't you go back to your own country?" And then I thought she was born in colonial Paramaribo, which
Yeah.
does not exist anymore. She
Mm-hmm.
was born in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. If
Yeah.
she goes back to Paramaribo, that's a country. When she was born, the country's surname did not exist.
Mm-hmm.
She was born a Dutch subject. She's been
Yeah.
a Dutch subject all her life,
Yeah.
and the reason why she's born in surname and not from her genetic home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's is because of slavery, because of
Yeah.
the it's the colonialist project that is Suriname. So it's so insulting for that remark alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but
Absolutely.
what I'm baffled with, because I just gave you this is the picture in the Netherlands, and
Mm-hmm.
we still have blackface Pete's. We still have it's getting better, but in Belgium a couple of years ago, you just decided, yeah, let's not do it.
Yeah.
Let's stop.
And I have to be completely honest here. I don't even really know how that happened. The thing is, the whole Black Pete debate is a lot less fiery over here than it is in the Netherlands. So like I heard about it, and I know that people were like talking about it and discussing it, and that was a whole thing. But it I don't know, it wasn't really the huge public disaster that it seems to be in the Netherlands. And yeah, I mean, I know there were people for and against it, like obviously notoriously the National Flemish Allegiance,
Ugh,
if that's a good translation of of
yeah,
that party name.
Vlaams
Um
Belang. Yeah.
no, not the
No,
no,
not
the
even them.
NVA.
Oh,
Yeah, so you
NVA. Oh, yeah,
for
them. Yeah.
the people unfamiliar with Belgian politics, on the far right, you have one Vlaams Belang, who are like pretty obviously fascist racist, and then you have NVA, which is the New Flemish Allegiance, and they are sort of separatist in the sense that they want Flanders and Wallonia to be separated, and they are a bit like the alt light kind of, ooh, no, immigration, ooh, cultural conservatism, blah, but like without the outright racism that also centrists can understand. So it's lots of dog whistling. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and obviously they're all like, oh no, Black Pete's like Flemish tradition, yada. But I don't know. There's been debate, but it's not like a heated soup or whatever thing. And at one point, all of a sudden, there was the Peter Pact, which was a declaration of intention, basically, and loads of toy stores, media companies, whatever, signed it, as in declaring their intent to not do Black Pete in blackface anymore and basically just use like Sooth Pete's or whatever. And that was that. And sure, there are some people who are like, do we really need this? Why the fuck is this happening? But in the meanwhile, it's there, it's done. There's no riots. And if you talk about Black Pete in this country, most people just sigh in exaggeration. And then often the conclusion is, can't we just talk about why we even have Sinterklaas instead? Can't we just talk about how we're lying to our kids? Like Black Pete isn't really the problem. Why do we lie to our kids? Like that's basically it. So that's what happens when you talk about Black Pete here.
Yeah, but it's been used because most people. One of the reasons I started this channel is to dispel the myth that the Netherlands is liberal.
All right.
Because we're not. We have, I think, when people say, "Oh, but you have legalized prostitution," yeah, because so we can tax it. That's basically it. I mean, there's no. The Netherlands is not like, oh, you can do what you want. It's like I don't care what you do. That's the being liberal in the Netherlands. But we need it taxed, and we need it. That's also why we legalized or decriminalized weed, because we can tax it, but we can still frown upon it. And this is what we try to do with everything, and we try to do it with Black Pete. And with Black Pete, you need to take a stand, because what is happening now is that the public debate is not going to solve this without violence, because we already had Pegida. You know, Pegida, the German right wing. They have a Dutch branch. I'm proudly blocked by the Dutch leader and his wife on Twitter. Yay! But yeah, no, but they stormed a Dutch primary school.
Yeah.
In Black Pete outfits and on the roof, and the police had to get them out. And these are the people who are saying, but what about the kids? What about the kids?
I know, like,
and
listen.
And I'm like, you're holding a children's party hostage because you like blackface. That's basically it.
Yeah, like literally, children do not care.
They
if you
don't
raise them with a blackface, Black Pete. They don't know the fucking difference. They don't give a fucking shit. And I don't understand. Like, I can't wrap my head around why, even if adults don't agree with all the reasons why Black Pete might be racist or what the fuck ever. I don't understand why it is so fucking important that Black Pete is portrayed as literally an ethnically black person. What is the point? I mean, honestly, I don't understand why a white-ass country with a basically white-ass Western European tradition needs to co-opt a representation of Black people into its culture. And then when Black people are like, wait, maybe we have an opinion about this, they're like, no, fuck off, it's our tradition. And you just kind of feature and you don't get a say. Like, what is that?
Well, I think it has to do with the fact that people are angry. They think they're being called racists for liking Black Pete in the past.
Yes.
And I sympathize with that. But it's not what they're saying, because they're not listening. They have this. Sure, there are extremists on the side of the anti-Petes. There are, of course, in every discussion you're going to have that.
Yeah.
But what the reasonable voices are not being heard, because they're like, oh, I hear the word racist, I'm not racist. So, well, first of all, we have to realize that everyone is somewhat racist.
Yeah.
just realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people don't. They say, no, I'm nice. And they always know a black person who's not against it. And I'm like, yes, but that's not the that shouldn't be it. We need to look at, okay, what is this doing to our country? And if you look at the side you're on, and this is what I did when I decided, okay, I'm anti-Pete, Black Pete, is I just looked at the one side just calls people monkeys, basically, and is racist after racist. They are racist to prove that Black Pete isn't racist, and the other side says, could we please do something else, because this is getting out of hand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
honestly think most people in the end won't care.
No, they don't.
I mean, obviously they won't. Like, what's it to you? If the Netherlands now decides to, okay, we're not going to do Black Pete anymore. Like a select few fascist people are going to be angry for like 5 years, and then everybody's just forgotten all about it because
Yeah.
every fucking child that celebrates Sinterklaas by then has completely forgotten that Black Pete was ever like literally blackface, Black Pete.
Yeah.
And if we're going to talk about tradition and preserving tradition, I think I tweeted this at one point while I was like researching and looking up stuff, that if Dutch people are so adamant on going on maintaining the Black Pete tradition or the Sinterklaas tradition as it is meant to be, one, they should get rid of Black Pete because he's only been there for 150 years. He wasn't there before.
Exactly.
So, and also like your tradition has changed so much over time. And that is the point. That is what traditions do. They change with time and with changing demographics and with changing knowledge. And I don't really like which Black Pete do you want to go back to? Do you want to go back to the Moorish one? Do you want to go back to the cartoon as bumbling buffoon, like borderline American prior slave one? Like which is it? What do you want? Which form of racism is most dear to you? Like
No, but it's what I want. What I suggest is, if you really believe in Dutch tradition, I believe you should also adjust the presence to the 17th century. You can't give people computers and Nintendo Switches if that's not traditional. So you just have to give them clogs and candy, and that's it. No, but else, because you're saying that, okay, this part shouldn't change, but you know, they didn't used to give home computers to people in the 1950s. So for shame, but no, but it's if you look at how Black Pete was portrayed, for instance, when I can remember seeing, because this is before my time, but when you live in the 1980s, the 1970s echoes a bit.
Yeah,
and I saw footage of the early 1970s where the Black Petes had an actual accent. They had like this fake. They have some fake, between quotation marks, black accent, which just disappeared, and no one cared. Black Pete has been evolving since the beginning, and but now that they say, okay, maybe we should give him less makeup, basically. Now they're angry.
It. Like,
that's basically
less makeup
it.
and no wig. That's pretty much it.
No, but also, do you know that people who wanted to protest the Black Pete, the entrance of Sinterklaas? He comes with a steamboat, which is also strange for a medieval bishop to arrive on a steamboat. So apparently that's okay, but okay. So
it's apparently because he was he is like also the patron saints of seafarers and
but seafarers, but he was the medieval.
Yeah,
he was like the 11th century. So I don't know if
they should just give him a dinghy.
Yeah, they should give him a sailboat. And he's Turkish, so another thing.
Why is he white?
How is he white? Why does he speak Dutch? I'm sure there are many Turkish people in the Netherlands. I'm sure we can find someone to play him. But I'm getting off course. Last year, there were a group of anti-Black Pete, and they wanted to protest. They asked for permission. They got all the permits, and they were a highway was blocked by angry people.
Right, I heard about that.
Yeah, and those people were convicted, by the way. But the police at that time refused to remove them. There was the Frisian police, and they said they were really nice to the people who were blocking a highway, which is illegal and very dangerous. And they were kind of miffy towards the people who just wanted to go through to exercise their rights to protest.
Yeah.
And when they were convicted, there was a online. They raised money. I believe they raised like a couple of €100,000 for their bills, etc. It's insane.
Wow.
And this is where we are. We I think as a Dutch society, strangely enough, because we used to look at Belgium as that fractured state. That with the language barriers and their it's true.
And with those like almost a full year that we went without government at one point.
Exactly. And you were also earlier with Vlaams Belang. You attend Vlaams Belang. the Flemish bloc. And we're like, oh, those people are really racist. I'm so happy we don't have that in the Netherlands. We have the Centrum Democrats. They are sort of racist, but we managed to contain them. And then we had Geert Wilders and Pim Fortuyn. And now we have Thierry Baudet.
Oh, right. Is
Yeah.
he like a kind of weird philosophy type dude?
Oh,
or
no,
am I confusing me with someone else?
He has a PhD in history, but he sucks at history.
Yeah.
Basically everything. He said online that people in the Netherlands should have Dutch names, and his name is Thierry Baudet.
Excuse me. Sorry. I had to swallow my water, and it was difficult because I was just about to Wow.
So I translated his name, and his name in Dutch would be Diederik Ezel. So which means donkey.
Yeah.
His name is Donkey in Dutch. So yeah, but it's interesting to see that we were. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Wow.
Yeah. But we were quite. Well, this is stereotypically arrogant, if I may speak.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Because we are known to be quite a bit stuck up. Flemish people, is that true?
The key difference is that you're more outspoken and Flemish people are very reserved. So we tend to see it as kind of you always being kind of know-it-all and very invasive and a bit stuck up. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like I said. So, and we were a bit stuck up. We're like, oh, well, thank goodness we don't have all that trouble. And now it's hilarious to see. It's terrible, but hilarious to see. Is the way you solve the Black Pete debate and how we're now practically rolling in the streets.
Yeah, that's true.
That's poetic justice.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I find it, even if the thing with Black Pete is the history of it, some parts at least of the history of it are clearly inspired by racial stereotypes.
Yes.
And I do not want to speak to the intent of making certain stories a certain way. I don't want to speak to the truth of certain legends. Like, I also don't want to speak to the intent of Schenkel's writing of Black Pete and why he did it that way, especially because he was like anti-slavery. Like, I don't know this guy's views. Maybe he just wanted to introduce a black character because he was like, oh, you know what, babe, maybe we should normalize these people in our society. I don't fucking know. That the guy's been dead for like 100 years, right?
Yeah.
But even so, undoubtedly, there are significantly racist symbolisms in the whole Black Pete thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people who like Black Pete and who don't want him to go and who like love the tradition and whatever, I wouldn't call those people like racist, as in intentionally racist, as in viewing Black Pete in a negative light. It's just that the reality of the situation is just hurtful by its associations with racist symbolism to an entire demographic of people. And you should take that into account. And if you look at who is actually protesting the loudest, if you see in the Netherlands, especially in Belgium, it's like not really that heated, but in the Netherlands, if you see all these literally far-right kind of racist, borderline fascist groups protesting and committing violence because of this, I think maybe as the average person, you kind of have to think what it means if the fascists are trying to defend this kind of thing.
Exactly, but this is what fascists co-opt issues and corrupt it. That's their entire MO. That's why Hitler called himself National Socialist, to corrupt socialism. This is what they have always done. They do it with the help of Moscow, which is, there was a research by a Dutch magazine, and they looked at, because Dutch is a harder language to have trolls for, because you can swing an election in Great Britain or US because it's English. We have like a natural firewall, which is the Dutch language, which is almost impossible to interpret it for people who aren't who are native speakers. But thanks to Google Translate, they did manage. And one of the top wedge issues they used was Black Pete, Sylvana, just to rile the people up. and I
Yeah.
think social media is not helping.
Oh no, no, it's definitely
Especially
not.
if you look at Twitter. I mean, I love Twitter, but to have a cohesive argument on Twitter is nigh impossible.
I
Because
It's
yeah,
true. And Twitter for me, because my curious cat is linked to my Twitter. And at one point there was like this person who had tweeted something about Black Pete's not racist, and just sort of quote tweeted that randomly. I just kind of explain. I wasn't even rude to them. I think I
yeah.
just quote tweeted and just kind of explaining like yeah, it is. And it took maybe a minute for me to get like a bunch of shit in my curious cat about why would you call Black Pete racist? It's not racist, blah. And I just, why are people so fired up about this? Like, even if you think it's not racist, what's it to you? Does it matter if this dude has an afro or red lips or black skin? Like,
Well, they say, well, it's being packaged as an attack on Dutch values.
mm,
That's it.
yeah,
It's
but that in
and
itself is just only possible because racism.
yeah, well, that means you need to get off that high horse. The white high horse. A lot of people
Yeah.
still are proud of. We still call like our Dutch expansionism the golden century, because
Why?
well, we were the number one world power in the 17th century. We were. I mean,
Mm.
I'm not proud of it, but yeah, if you would, uh, if you look at Indonesia, and just lay that over Europe,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of if you would, I'm against borders, and I understand borders from a national. I understand nationalism if you're oppressed. If you're oppressed, I get it because you want
Yeah.
your own thing. Um, but yeah, we still call that the golden century, and to realize that we still are dealing with the shit from that era, and also shit from the 19th century, and the
Oh,
shit
yeah.
until World War II, because we had colonies. The last colony we stopped was 1976, which
That
is
is
Suriname.
such a short period of
It's
time
yeah,
ago.
and
Like,
people are forgetting it. Like I
yeah,
said, Savannah Simmons is I believe in her early 40s, and she was born in a colony. This
it's crazy.
yeah, exactly. This is within within the lifetime of our parents. This is
Yeah.
and we're all acting like it's ancient history. And we do that all the time. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with
Because
if
it's
you,
easy for us. It's easy for us for it to be ancient history, right?
yeah, because we're not affected by it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with religion. The way people look at Islam, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
is like, oh, it's this backwards culture where women are being oppressed, etc. Now, well, I grew up in the Dutch Bible Belt, and I can tell you, women are still not seen as full by Christians in the Netherlands. This is a generation ago. I believe it was until like the 1970s a woman could suddenly own. There was something in the Netherlands that you were like, seriously, people can't like have a mortgage or something. It was
Oh,
that
what
stupid.
the
But
actual fuck?
no, but it's the same thing I believe in Belgium and throughout Europe, where we act like it's normal because
Yeah.
most people don't. Because most people are in their 40s, mid 40s, 50s, they're used to the freedom, but
Mm-hmm.
we're just barely getting out of it, and now we're giving people the stink eye who really where the governments haven't really figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So
It's like, oh, talking about Christianity or like religion
yeah.
in general, did you catch the fact that in the 1600s, Protestants prohibited Sinterklaas in the Netherlands
Oh
as
yes.
Catholic heresy? I mean, if you want to talk about the tradition of your country.
Oh, there was a discussion because like I said, Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Sinterklaas was only allowed in my church to be celebrated at the youth group. I think from the mid 90s, 1990s.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, him too. Um, but he's a saint. He's a Catholic saint.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we don't, and that's seen as worshiping someone else than
Yeah.
God.
Idol stuff or whatever.
Idols, yes, false
I mean,
idols.
I'm not that down with Protestantism, but you know, I know that they don't really do the idol worship
No,
thing.
we don't have saints. We don't have Mary. Well, we have Mary, but she's not that. She's just a woman who happened to give birth to Christ, instead of being sort of central in a lot of things. But yeah, no. even so that it was frowned upon if you had Sinterklaas in the past. And when Sinterklaas was there, he was seen as this boogeyman, and
Mhm.
he was more of a boogeyman in the Protestant regions than he was in the Catholic regions, where
That's interesting.
yeah, well, also I must say, because Catholics have this way of dealing with everything. They have this way of, I mean, let's not get into the Catholic Church of now, and but there is this. I think there's some beauty in Catholicism. Is in there's always a way to get out of things, right?
Well, the thing is, I was baptized,
Yeah,
and I did the whole
that's your way of
communion,
getting out of
whatever
it.
thing. But yeah, but the thing is, like, I have no fucking clue about Catholicism
No, but
at all.
no Catholic has. That's normal. Not, almost most Catholics don't know anything about the Bible.
Hmm.
I mean, I know it back to front. But
Wow.
the thing is, you can just go to confession, confess everything you did, and he'll probably give you 12,000 Hail Marys, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
There is no such thing in Protestantism.
Wow, I did not know that. But
We
like
don't.
Belgium is a notoriously non-religious country. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a whole thing with corruption and Catholic priests and
Oh,
economic
yeah,
crisis and
yeah.
stuff.
No. I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we don't have confession. You just have this guilt, this lingering guilt. That's what
Wow.
you have.
Cool. I'm
Yeah.
ignorant as fuck about like variations of Christianity. Like,
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very much aware of it because we used to say, oh yeah, those people are wrong. Um, yeah. So you kind of know. Plus, my neighbor was a Catholic priest. Really nice man, really nice guy. Um, we used to live across the Catholic Church, but yeah. So like I said, Dutch Bible Belt. But yeah, the we had. The Dutch have a tentative relationship with Sinterklaas. So
mm,
yes, it's ironic that um, people are fighting for a Catholic tradition, which actually hasn't been that popular for very long. Like,
yeah.
and if yeah, so yeah, interesting. But
And weird, interesting and weird. Like, people have such short memories. I
they
mean, we've,
do,
we've talked about this. Like, we
yeah,
all forgot like our colonial history, and literally, Belgium legalized gay marriage, for example, and I think it was 2003, which is like 15 years ago. And my
yeah,
generation, I was born in 87, so I was a teenager then, and even my generation is sort of like just
cool with it,
basically forgetting that we didn't
yeah,
always had gay marriage. Like,
yeah.
it's it's a very dangerous thing for people to forget the atrocities of their past.
No, but it's also 1984. If you look at 1984, we're
Oh
always
yeah.
at war with Oceania.
Yeah.
It's basically that.
Mm.
It's basically um, people are not given a perspective also by their education system, by
Yeah.
their media, and you need that. I've seen, and this is also budget cuts thanks to neoliberalism, and that's also part of the problem. There were budget cuts to media, there were budget cuts to education. Now people are not educated to be functioning citizens, they are educated to be employees.
Yes, that's true. Capitalism, a
Exactly, capitalism, there we go again. But it's also because if you have a broader knowledge of things, you can put things into perspective. But people look through this tiny people, and all they see is people being angry at their past, and they're
yeah.
like, "Well, go fuck yourself. I didn't do that." That's what they're saying. Well, that's nice, but we
Yeah.
still have those systems. And if you don't explain the systems to people, they're not gonna know. They're like, "What are you talking about? Everything's fine by me." And if you have something, one of those difficult things to show is privilege.
Hmm.
It's so hard to prove.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's part of a larger problem. I think Black Pete, like I said, is being used as a wedge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very clear example with which to fearmonger kind of the annihilation of your people and your identity. It's like and I'm not surprised that it's being used as a wedge issue for like far right groups and whatever. Because the thing is, there is a bunch of fear mongering going on about white identity and white genocide and the Great Replacement and our culture being destroyed by Muslims immigrating and all that bunch of nonsense. And I think Black Pete is the perfect embodiment of this fear that this centuries long standing cultural tradition seems to be being destroyed by foreigners who aren't really foreigners. I mean,
No?
yeah, and it's not just your one stagnant cultural tradition, but that's how it's being fed to people because it instills a necessary fear into them to close their borders and not allow people in and to move further to the right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So I think we're almost at the hour, and I
Mm.
think we covered some enormous ground, I must say.
Yeah, true.
really,
Yeah,
really,
we talked
a,
about a lot
really
of stuff actually. Yeah.
a lot of stuff. Did I miss something? Is there something you would like to talk about still?
I mean, I always like to talk about every kind of stuff. I mean, if you let me just go off, then within the minute we'll be talking about trans people, like for sure. But no, I think we covered most of it. Yeah.
Oh, great. So yeah, I really enjoyed our hangout.
Yeah, same. We should do this again sometime.
We should absolutely. We also we had a different idea.
Yes, true, true.
We could do that perhaps in the future.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. So everyone, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. Sub to your channel, Amelia Jane. Please do.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, can I do a quick charity shout out? Because
yes,
since this is left tube, I imagine that people who watch you will probably also watch philosophy tube.
Ye-
Um,
probably. Well,
right?
I'm there at what 100,000 subscribers. I'm at almost 200. So I'm assuming yes.
So yeah, there will absolutely be some people here who watch philosophy tube. And the thing is, Ollie's birthday is the 24th of April, I think. So it's a long time coming, but we're actually doing a charity drive for Samaritans, which is a crisis line in the UK that he called when he was feeling suicidal. So there's a charity drive for that. So if you go to at Philosophans Give on Twitter, you will see a pinned tweet with the Just Giving campaign to that. I know it's early days, so you have a lot of time, but it would be really cool if you could donate to a good cause in celebration of a left tuber's birthday. And if you can't donate, then it would be really cool if you could retweet it. So and maybe follow the account so you can stay up to date. So there is my charity
Great.
promo shout out.
It's also, if you have trouble finding it, it's on both our Twitter accounts. We both retweeted
That
it.
is also true.
That
Yes.
is also true. So you can retweet it from there or look
Mm.
for information there.
Yeah.
So yes, a worthy cause. So please, if you can spare something, please do. So well, that was it. Thanks everyone. Thanks Amelia.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. It was a real pleasure to hang out.
yeah, likewise. Okay. Okay. Bye everyone.
Okay, bye, chat. Bye bye.